Look, Targar friends. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Orc Mode workout. And today is max effort squat day. I was really happy with today, so I didn't do a whole lot of extra volume. I only filled out about 10 minutes of training here because everything went really well. Like I got a 15-pound PR on a box squat. Now, you guys notice today there's no change, no bands. I'm actually measuring all of my stuff, so I'm actually going to be using digital scales to measure my band tension so that I know how much bands I have at the bottom and top of all my lifts, so that I can track all of that closely and we can really keep up with it. But I also need to occasionally rotate in my normal lifts, right, without bands and chains to see where I'm at. And last time we did a box squat was what, 8-9 weeks ago? I have to go check my exact day. I got 425, right? Well, today we ramped up to the 425. It felt fairly heavy, so I went up 435. Well, I felt like I had a little more in the tank, so I threw another 5 pounds on, rested 3 or 4 minutes, put 5 more on, and came and hit that. So we got 440. Now, truth be told, I don't know that the 440 was a true max. It felt pretty close. But we're going to mark it, and here's why. 15-pound PR, 2 months apart. Now, on my actual squatting list, my main squats like this, if I can increase 15 pounds every 2 months, that would be phenomenal. So some people would say, man, you've done a lot of work for 15 pounds, especially working off muscle memory. But you know what? 15 pounds, guys. I'll take it. I hope I can pull that off again in another 2 months. Like, that would be phenomenal. I would be really happy if that happened. Because again, we're talking about 15-pound increases on a dead stop exercise like a box squat on your max in 2 months. So to me, that shows me that a lot of this training is working. Now, we can get into a lot of arguments as to how much these box squats translate to a normal back squat. And there would be more argument about it if I was squatting to just above parallel. But because you guys can see from the photo evidence that I showed you from the side, I'm 2 inches below depth. All right, I could go 2 inches higher and pass in comp. A lot of feds would pass me even more, but I could skirt by in just about any comp going 2 inches higher than I do now. So I'm used to just dropping to this box and then starting out of the bottom. So it's fair to say that at any given time, my back squat's going to be at least equal to this. But I'm also doing a wider stance, and I'm trying to practice that. And I want to get out of all the bad habits I had with my squat. I need to get my quads stronger, get my thoracic erector stronger, everything else, and hypertrophy everything, and get used to the wider stance, and then I will come back and do that. Because part of the thing with the wider stance, notice the torso stays more upright, because the bar stays mid-foot, so you don't necessarily need that thoracic rounding at all if your hips come up a little bit fast, right? It changes the biomechanics because it brings your center of gravity further back. So there's a lot of use to that. I was happy with that, though. 15-pound PR, I stopped there, and I actually said I'm not going to do a lot of volume today because, that was a solid PR. I want to make sure that it all sinks in, and I don't need to overdo today. Now, these deficit sumos, I went up 20 pounds today. So because I went up 20 pounds, I only did 3 triples. And 3 triples is fine, because this heavier work, we just need to get at least 3 decently heavy pulls in on max effort day. Where we're trying to hit at least 90%. We want to hit 90% or more. And I feel like for me, off of a deficit sumo, this 485 is at least 90%, right? It's at least 90%. I bet off of a deficit right now, my max is less than 550 on this. I'd be willing to bet that's the case. So I think we're okay here with this. In fact, the second and third reps felt a little bit heavy. So we're getting a good training effect in, and I'm trying to get to where I'm doing a lot more deficit. I may do deficit with chains. And people say, well, why the little small deficit? What's that really doing for you? It forces me to get more explosive at the bottom. It forces me to get tighter. It forces me to work on my hip mobility. It's forcing me to have to learn to open my hips up more. So these deficit sumo pulls like that, because of that, is going to train me to try to get lower, because I don't have the best mobility. And mobility is not about flexibility, guys. I can drop ass to grass. It is about strength there. So a lot of what I'm doing right now is to get stronger in that wider stance position at the bottom, because I'm going to need that for my squatting. So that deficit sumo is going to carry over really well to my box squatting, and vice versa. They're going to feed into each other very effectively. I went up today on weight on these chest supported rows, and I ended up doing 6 sets of 6 instead of 3 sets of 12 or whatever this time. But I went heavier. All right, so now we're going to do these with 205. And I can honestly say 205 on these from a dead stop off the floor without any ability to use any leg drive, that's actually fairly hard. That's tough. And notice I'm not even doing them as a seal row. Like I'm not doing the whole flop up. I'm actually having to stay fairly stationary. Now my feet move because it's almost impossible for them not to. Because again, you're pulling pretty hard. But yeah, doing this from a dead stop, I mean, this is tough. But it's good training. It's going to be good accessory work for my deadlift and bench. Having to pull it from the dead stop, no lower back is being used, so that's going to let me pull a little heavier on my deadlifting because I want to do a lot of deadlifting volume. Between the speed day and the max effort day, I want to be able to do more and more heavy deficit deadlifts off that Sumo, and then obviously the speed work on top of it. And so me letting my lower back rest on my back work like this is kind of important. And people need to understand that difference when we get to this stuff. Novice lifters versus more advanced lifters, it's a different animal. I would never have novice lifters do this. The only way I would have a novice lifter do this is if I wanted to put them on a ton of deadlifting. All right? Then we might do this. But I don't know that I would necessarily structure a program that way as a cookie cutter. That might be something I would do coaching someone individually. Might do it that way. But what do we end up here? 6 sets of 6. Let us use a heavier weight and still got the same amount of total reps. Same amount of total reps is like 3 by 12, but with more weight. So we got better tonnage out of it. I also wanted to kind of see, since I'm like, all right, I already hit a squat PR and this is a heavy day and I don't want to do a lot of reps today. Let me just see what I can do with the belt squats. Let me go ahead and take that belt squat to it. So let me bring it up to about 300 pounds. And because that's the limit of what my chain is rated at to safely hold my chain and belt. I eventually want to get to where I can really rep this out for high reps. But let's get the tension going. This is max effort day. Let's get some good tension work in. See how my quads feel. And yes, guys, I obviously have loose skin. For those who are new to the channel, you guys got to remember I lost 100 pounds of body fat after the age of 30. So, I'm going to have some loose skin. And it really shows on exercises like this. Deal with it. If you don't like it, that's too bad. So, these went pretty well. I got 5, and I think I got 6 on the last set. I think I got 6. I lost count, but I think it was 6, and I haven't really reviewed the count in the footage. But I think it was 6, so I'm happy with that. I mean, this is pretty much the limits of what I can handle as far as the equipment I have safely. So if I can increase the volume of this and get to where I can do 10 or more reps on multiple sets with this weight, I think that is going to translate into some very, very serious squat strength because of the additional hypertrophy from my quads and adductors and everything else. It's going to really, really bring a lot to the table. And what people need to remember is that even if this goes up slow from here, it doesn't matter because it's back off work. I will always be doing heavier squats before this. So I'll always have done more work in terms of things like my quads and hips and everything. And then this finishes everything off. And when we're pulling Sumo on top of it and then doing this exercise, this carries over directly to my lower body strength for both my box squat and my Sumo deadlift. And so we create a synergy with all of this of getting enough workload for all of these muscles involved. And then I can always do extra back and core work to make sure all of that's strong enough. But this should really, really tremendously help my squat strength, especially that wider stance squat and my Sumo deadlifts. And so this is actually almost a necessary accessory for this. In fact, I almost feel like this specific accessory movement, along with stuff like my incline bench, actually addresses every single criticism serious raw lifters who compete at the world level have ever had of something like Westside and the conjugate method. These actually address it. These assistance movements actually address the weaknesses of the program for raw lifters, which kind of goes with what the whole program like this, the conjugate style training, is meant to work around, is to always know what your weaknesses are and train them. So those should actually help sort it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.